Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chelsea. I serve as the program manager for the Region 10 Opioid Abatement Council, referred to as Gateway to the Rockies Opioid Council, or GROC. Today is our June Executive Committee meeting. We are going to start off with attendance and quorum. Commissioner Dahl-Kemper.
Here.
Commissioner Marlin.
Here.
Commissioner Hollingsworth.
Here.
Michael Miller. Dr. Ryan. He's in the room. We'll count him as here. Marie Larson.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Thank you. We can hear you.
Okay.
A fiscal contact. That would be Amber Dower. She is in the room. We'll count her as here. And then program manager.
I'm here. Sorry.
Thank you. Program manager, which is myself. So we do have quorum. Other folks in the room include Rhiannon Street from Omni for facilitation support and Carrie Markle for legal support. General updates for contracting. Jeffco Public Health, we had an admin correction to their budget in the amendment that is slated for the Board of Health agenda on June 16th, and then we will get that signature back. Jeffco Sheriff's Office is almost done with red lines. They do have the initial contract for signature. We had one clarifying question for the two legal teams, but that should still be ready to have a June 1 start date. Mountain Youth Network, since I sent out the meeting materials, that budget is done and put into EUNA, ready to go. Jefferson Center for Mental Health, Soteria Landing, they have the contract. We should be done with red lines. They have an anticipated July 1st start date. Not on here is Gilpin County Parks and Rec. We did clarify their van use agreement to allow transportation to like Resilience 1220 leadership events. So that signature is with the county attorney's office. I think those are all the grantee updates. On here we have, I'm going to go chronologically. Not on here is the national conference hosted by the 7 group that is on June 17th to the 19th. We supported 6 sponsees to that. Marie Larson was one of those sponsees and she can no longer attend. So we do have an extra ticket to reassign to someone. Tanya Wheeler had expressed interest after the fact from Advocates for Recovery Colorado. I do not know if she has already gotten her ticket or if she is still interested. And then Monarch Recovery expressed interest in filling that ticket, but I wanted to check with the executive committee to see if we wanted to send someone else from Gilpin. Like Sandy is our chair and from Gilpin, so I think that would be a good use of the ticket if she can go. But I do need to submit a name change today. Floor is open.
Sandy, I promise to either leave you be or hang out with you the whole time, whatever your preference, if you choose to come. I think it would be really great to have you there.
I'm just looking at my calendar. It's the 17th, 18th, 19th. Is that right? And where's it at?
It's in
Denver?
Yeah, in Denver. I'm trying to pull up the to see if they have the agenda posted.
Yeah, that would help.
Yes, here it is.
I know I can't be there on the 19th all day, or maybe not any of it. So the agenda would help.
I just dropped it in the chat.
So it's the kind of thing we could drive down, drive back, drive down, drive back.
I think so.
Okay, if it's just Denver. Do you mind just, I'll look at the tab for the, Okay.
Pull that up.
And Sandy, I got hotels, but the GROC is not paying for hotel rooms. I just got those rooms so that I can try to do some networking for GROC in the evenings between.
On your county dime. Okay, well, I'm not gonna decide like right now. I'll skim this real quick while we're talking about other things.
Okay, I will circle back to that at the end of the meeting.
All right.
Next agenda item is summit planning for October 29th. Round 1 RSVPs did go out May 1st. I did close them on May 31st. And then that whole week, the first week of June, from the 1st to the 5th, I was sending follow-up emails to people clarifying like if they had asked for an additional spot and they had 2 spots but only used 1, I clarified that. Circling back to the participating local governments, just letting them know like you are part of the regional council, your involvement would be beneficial. Some people got like email kickbacks that they have since resigned their position. So trying to find someone else in that spot. That led to a total of 71 RSVPs. The advisory committee did approve that anyone who asked for an additional spot, there was 10 people that we could give them an additional spot. That would bring us up to 81 confirmed. Still missing large representation from the participating local governments and some of those bigger centers like School of Public Health, Behavioral Health Administration, that I think would be really beneficial for just not creating fragmented systems or duplication. A lot of the alternates have not RSVP'd, voting members have not RSVP'd, so kind of being a little bit conservative there. Is there any way I could tell me where you want me to scroll on this?
Chelsea, are you looking for some additional strategies or help to help promote this among people who've been invited to really kind of solidify that count? Or are you feeling good about where we are given the time of the year?
Yeah, any strategies of additional people we could reach out to, even if they're in the same organization, if we wanted to send invites to people who did not make the first round of invites. I know some people, like some of our grantees, Jeffco's Sheriff's Office hasn't RSVP'd. Most of them are on vacation. Where did we go? Stedman Group requested an invitation in the next round because they couldn't plan that far out. Really just any additional names or follow-ups who I don't have on this list.
I'm struggling a little bit because I feel like this is such a comprehensive list of folks. So it may mean just another round of invitations or a reminder. And here's why we have the deadline. And I know it can be hard for folks to plan that far out in advance. But I also think if we've got sort of our occupancy or capacity rate that we're thinking of, we should be able to get there or close to it. 71's great in terms of RSVPs, I think, at this stage. So
then it would
great
be
work.
81 if we sent the people who asked for an additional attendee. We would be about 81, which I think, yeah, is really good, really conservative.
And I definitely think more are going to straggle, not straggle, more will come in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go ahead and if someone has requested to be able to be present, I think add those 10 and then I'm willing to support following up with county contacts inside my county with like, oh, did you see this invite? I see a couple names on there that I think probably just like quick look probably will say yes when they get around to it.
And I tried to copy the commissioners on the participating local government invitations so that you guys could do some nudges. So I'll just go ahead and do that again in this next round.
Okay.
All right, cool. So going into the budget, we definitely have the room rental is going to be a waived charge, so that's free. AV services is going to be 300, and that was just for the staff to support the AV. Wagon Coffee Roasters is a women-owned coffee location in Denver, and they are owned by a woman in recovery, and she hires people in recovery. They've done several other like state opioid events. She quoted me $1,000 for delivery or $500 for a pickup, and that includes the cups, the creamer, the coffee supplies, labor, hours, and then it would be picked up by me. The advisory council said that was good with them. Any questions on coffee before I go on? And no final decision has to be made now. You can just throw some thoughts at me to keep prospecting. I'm not seeing anything, so I will go into some type of merchandise, swag, marketing. The advisory committee did like the idea of tote bags, and I know that there has been some internal concern about whether we should spend opioid dollars on some type of swag or a thank you gift. What I think is really important is that this business is owned by a couple in opioid use recovery, and they are located in Gilpin County. So it's the money is going back into the region and supporting a business that is directly tied to opioid use. Plus, I think having the bags, people can carry their conference stuff. We're recycling with our groceries, and then just having that logo on there does get the word out of the Opioid Council, what we are, who we do, which is something that we're always trying to do is get the word out of our funding. So they did approve the tote bags. That would be $1,200 if we did somewhere between 100 and 199. She is giving us a discount and waiving some of the screen printing fees. So I put that here. Any comments before I go to the next catering item?
Chelsea, so these
Yes.
are just these are your suggestions.
Yes. I'm
Oh.
not looking to finalize this until probably August. Right now I'm just looking for feedback if we absolutely don't like a number or we don't like a vendor and I need to prospect more.
So on the swaggy stuff, I know we have mixed opinion. I'm personally okay like with the bags because I think that people can carry them on and they might use them more out in the community. But I'm not really into the t-shirts because I've gotten so many t-shirts for things and they'll wear them once and then they just go to the thrift store in the future.
George and I
But
were talking about Leslie wearing a t-shirt because she's always in her fancy stylish suit.
oh, so you want her to.
So yeah, there were just some problems with the shirts, like sizing, getting enough sizings. The advisory committee even discussed doing like half t-shirts, half tote bags, but that would cause sizing issues and would just require more pre-planning. That's why they made the recommendation of the tote bags.
And of course, you said you're going to have stickers.
We do have stickers left over from the previous conference.
Yeah. I like stickers. Okay,
Yeah.
so my thought is to forego all t-shirts except one for Leslie.
No t-shirt. I like this though. This is very feisty. I do like it. It's funny. I'll just dovetailing on Sandy's comments. I really appreciate that we have vetted this with the earlier group and they gave feedback on it. And you all know how I feel about swag. It makes me very nervous when we're tapping our dollars and funding. But I think that this seems like a good use of dollars. The amount is low. They are recyclable. It does provide people with something to put their items in. Certainly other conferences have done this. And I think the state conference has had different items as well, right? To help promote this initiative and get the word out in the community. So I really appreciate, for me, it's about the rationale that goes into why we make the decision and then also keeping those costs down. And I think we've done a really great job on that, Chelsea. And thank you so much for listening to my concerns about that. And I think sometimes it can backfire if it's not thought out well. And we've done that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Ditto.
Of course. All right. So the advisory committee, Wagon Coffee Roasters only does coffee. They don't have breakfast items. We do currently have a breakfast networking session planned. The advisory committee suggested biscuits and berries. So I prospected them and they are looking at roughly $10. Like if we did some of these breakfast sandwiches, I was looking at these like breakfast a la carte sandwiches. I estimated about $10 a person, and then I did half the number, so I did like 75. That would be $800. And we can get a better count as that gets closer. If this is looking good, I'll do a more formal inquiry to them to look at like delivery fees. We get tax waived. I have to correct that with Jason's Deli. We don't have to pay tax to get a better estimate for the future. Are there any other breakfast suggestions? Are we good with me continuing to prospect biscuits and berries? Okay, also they are
I
in
would
Region 10.
I would pad that number a little bit. 800 sounds low. If just for planning purposes, I mean, obviously we'll narrow it into what we actually project, but 800 feels, we'll have more participants and want to make sure everybody can have food.
Do you want to do everybody for breakfast? Like, should I do the full number for breakfast?
80%, 90%.
Yeah, okay.
Just a thought from me here. When we've done events like this in the past, like opioid settlement related, often like croissants, just like fruit and some type of pastry or something is enough food. People are kind of on the go. And so I actually love the berries and biscuits idea, but if we find that budget is tight or we have like a huge attendee list as things get a little bit closer, just like a couple of fruit platters and like pastries locally is a good, often much cheaper alternative that we've had some success with. And then the only other thing I'll say is, Chelsea, if helpful, and you're like schlepping all this food morning of, I'm happy to help like pick things up and help set things up. But just give me a heads up beforehand.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'll do a more formal inquiry and try to come up with like 2 or 3 different options based off of Rhiannon's comments for smaller platters, kind of a la carte for breakfast. Jason's Deli for lunch they catered the last 2 conferences. It was $11 a box. They are now at $12 a box lunch. It does include chips and a sandwich. They initially quoted me tax, which I had to tell them we don't have to pay tax. There is a delivery fee and a that was like $5, and then a service charge, like a tip that was like $150. So that was about $22.50 for Jason's Deli. That is one of the cheapest places. With the advisory committee, we did talk about ODBs. Again, recovery owned, hires people in recovery. They have some connections to opioid work already, but they were like $15 to $17 a sandwich. So that was like almost $3,000. So we did decide to stick with Jason's Deli. It's $12.99. I'm sorry.
Chelsea, remind me the hours that will be there.
We have breakfast networking set up for 7:45 a.m. to 8:30, and then we have closing about 4 p.m. And we're still playing with the agenda, like if some of these earlier things can be a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I like Rhiannon's idea about just putting some stuff out, because some people will arrive having had breakfast if they're early birds. So it's kind of more of a snack, and then if you're giving a full lunch thing.
I do not have drinks on here. We'll go to Costco. I do have a Costco membership. So I don't think that is gonna exceed 100, but I will get a more solid number my next Costco trip. Badges and printing, I do still have to prospect that. I'll look on Amazon to see just kind of some badging options. I've been more focused on catering. My goal is to keep this under 6,000. That would make me really happy. I think I can do it. I'll try to do some negotiation with Jason's Delis, and then, like I said, piece some things together with biscuits and berries. All right, anything else here, or can I move on?
I put a link to the Santiago's burritos to go menu. They do like $3.50 breakfast burritos. They're really good. That everybody in Denver loves them and knows them, and so maybe just think about that.
There's a Santiago's in Golden too, just as an FYI.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will
Oh,
prospect
sorry.
that.
I'm a mountain person. When I say Denver, I mean everything west of the Hogback. If it's between the
Oh, I know.
Hogback and Kansas City, you're in Denver.
I was totally tracking George. It was just an FYI. It's about, like 10 minutes, not even 8 to 10 minutes from the county building.
I will prospect Santiago's too.
And Chelsea, just because I don't eat meat, sometimes I've been to things and they've ordered vegetarian and none have arrived. So it'd be good just to
Make sure
reiterate.
my twin sister is vegetarian too, so that's always on my mind to make sure that there is an option.
Not like I'm going to go away.
Yes. I don't think there's a lot to work on the agenda this meeting. I have been working on developing worksheets for our 2 breakout sessions. And Rhiannon is helping coordinate kind of like what these should look like, what we should include. I think I have a first draft done. But my goal for these breakout sections is to be looking at the strategic plan that we have currently for GROC, all of the Exhibit E line items that are possible for each funding area, and talking about service gaps, potential providers for those service gaps, to really help shape what the call for funding should include or not include or look like. Advisory committee, Grace, we do have a mid-year check-in coming up for the June 22nd meeting. Peggy Jarrett and Dr. Annette Cannon are going to be 2 names that I am recommending. They do need to be nominated by a voting member and then voted on. Peggy Jarrett is from Intermountain Health. So Amber Qatar is from Common Spirit Hospitals. Her counterpart at Intermountain Health is Peggy Jarrett. So recommending that we have all of our hospitals covered in Region 10. Dr. Annette Cannon is the coroner for Jefferson County. She has been part of the unofficial advisory committee before my tenure, but something happened when I transitioned into my role and we were formalizing the advisory committee that she didn't get her name put in. So she does have an application that is here for folks. If they want to see it, the advisory committee does recommend that we accept both of those names. Any questions on that before those get taken to the full council in June at the end of the month?
Quick question for me, Chelsea. Would you like me to keep their names off of minutes since that's not formalized? I wasn't sure if that was like a public thing or I need to worry about that.
this meeting is more of just like a pre-check. So you could put their names on the
Okay.
minutes.
Thank you.
If I'm not hearing anything, then like I said, that will be an official agenda item June 22nd for the full council to vote. We will also have a switch from Clear Creek Schools. This is discretionary. So this is appointed by the county commissioner who is the GROC voting member. George is on top of that. We'll have an official appointment then. Nothing from this group.
It should be made official tomorrow.
Yay. So this request is coming from me, and the executive committee does have delegation to approve this. I am and just for potential conflict of interest, Rhiannon is with Omni. She is in the room. I am asking for a budget amendment to Omni. So this is what their budget currently looks like. They have key personnel with dollar amounts attached to projected hours, and then a total amount that was tied to their contract. As the project evaluation evolves and building the data dashboard evolves, they are rotating folks in and out for subject matter expertise. So it would be easiest for tracking for Amber and I if we just made a single personnel line item. When they submit invoices, let me pull that up to show folks what that looks like. They still have to submit one line item per person. So their invoices would look like this. Here are the categories, and then you click on personal services, and then it shows the exact line item. They do have attachments that typically go in the line item that shows what that person was working on for a total. So we'll still be able to track that. And then they do submit a narrative. We talked with Omni about submitting basically like this person did this many hours on this project with a description of work. So we still have a detailed audit for them. It is just changing what their budget looks like. Floor is open. Looking for a motion to approve condensing individual personnel line items into a single personnel line item.
Chelsea, I'm going to be silent for 10 seconds while I wait for anyone to protest that motion.
And this was approved by the advisory committee.
I move we
Dr.
have
Chelsea,
Yes.
I just have a question. You kind of like shot through that pretty quickly. So people are being paid at different hourly rates. So how can you merge them into one line item if there's different rates?
So they would have a single personnel line item with a grand total of this amount. So that's all the individual line items put together. And then when they submit an invoice, they still have to submit an individual line per person. And then they still submit a check report, like a pay stub. So see how it says like Meredith was like $95 an hour for 115 hours total on the project. This is how much she's invoicing this time. They do submit a narrative that describes it, so we can still track who is getting paid.
So if you could just go back one screen of what you were just showing, I also saw that it said other people like that. No, sorry, you're just moving so fast. That other people's hours are being billed under somebody else's name.
Yes. So like Lauren is out on maternity leave, and so there's like 2 or 3 different people that fill in for Lauren. So they report that under Lauren's name, and they might have Lauren twice. let me see if I can find a different invoice to show this.
So you don't think for tracking purposes or accountability, it's important to know who is actually doing the work in the billing in case there's a problem?
We would still know that.
Okay.
So here, so like in this invoice, they had Oscar committed 4 hours at $120 an hour for $480 total. He was filling in for Meredith. Meredith did not work on the project. And
So then
we-
why
Go
why
ahead.
wouldn't Oscar be billed at the 95 if he's doing Meredith's work?
Because he has higher level expertise. He's at a different pay rate.
Right, but that's not really required if Meredith was originally required to do the work at her pay level.
So they still wouldn't, I think that might be I feel like that's too restrictive for Omni, and it prevents them from pulling in people with subject matter expertise on projects if they feel like that's needed. Their total category of personnel would still cap out. Like, we're not changing the amount of the line item.
Okay.
Rhiannon, are you guys hiring at that rate? Sign me up.
So Chelsea, you said that like in that example, he was filling in, but actually, was he actually not filling in as much as his additional skills were needed for that part of the project, which is different.
Yeah. So I said in the beginning, they're pulling different people into the project with subject matter expertise. Separately, I use the example of like Lauren being out on maternity leave, and so having people fill in. So there's two different things going on.
Chelsea, are you comfortable with Rhiannon answering that question?
That would be a Carrie question if she can talk. I don't have a problem with it.
Carrie?
I think this is a discretionary question for this body. It's not, I don't see it as a legal question.
Okay,
Does that,
cool. Yeah, we want to make sure we're not violating any laws, but I'm okay with it.
Colleagues, I'm comfortable. Or is anybody uncomfortable with Rhiannon answering this question? I think she's got the, can help us understand the details here.
I'm
Rhiannon, go
comfortable,
ahead.
George.
Hi, all. Okay, couple of things going on here. First of all, when we decided to make this change, we also decided to start filling out an Excel spreadsheet that has every staff member, the role that they play, their rate, and the amount of hours that they spent on the project. So with the budget amendment, you're actually getting a lot more information from Omni about like who is working on things, how qualified they are, and exactly what they did on the project. And then the reason that we think this is going to be helpful is that the current scope of work is budgeted with specific staff. But as Chelsea said, as the project evolves, we are pulling in people like Oscar, who you saw, who's been there for decades and is too expensive to staff on this project, but might be able to provide like some consultation hours to really juice up our processes. And with EUNA and how GROC currently invoices and kind of collects information, we were having to try to submit staff change forms for like maybe 3 hours of work one time a year for someone like Oscar to come in and kind of provide some subject matter expertise. So with this shift, you all still get us to pull from the wisdom of all of Omni. You get the exact people, their rate, what they did on the project, and you still have the consistent staff team that you all vetted. So like we submitted bio sketches for everyone. If anyone official on the project leaves, you all will know that. We'll do the staff change form. This is just like a way for us to bring in extra voices and still give you all of the information that you need and stay within like our original proposed budget.
Thank you. Rhiannon, questions for Rhiannon?
Yes. So just to clarify further, it still brings greater transparency to the project should other consultants be brought in because of their expertise area for whatever particular issue tied to GROC we may be exploring further. Yeah. Great.
Nailed
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate the additional explanation, and Elisa, I really appreciate your making sure that we understand this. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve this budget revision. It appears to continue to control costs, increase flexibility, possibly allow improved services with no increase in our costs.
Second.
I
this is
second it.
Leslie. Oh, sorry, Tim. We'll go with your second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Chelsea.
We do opposition in the chat. And we aren't seeing anything, so thank you, folks. This group did ask, next agenda item, this group did ask to revisit the conflict of interest statement, and I did have to do a lot of explaining with the advisory committee to eventually say this makes sense. This current conflict of interest statement is written very broadly. So all of the Jefferson County voting members have a conflict on Jefferson County projects. So that would be like the public health, human services, law enforcement commissioner have a conflict of interest on the JCPH Public Health Harm Reduction Award. The municipal rep does not have a conflict of interest. That is a different funding structure. There was conversation and interest to explore separating that a little bit more. So for example, Dr. Ryan doesn't have anything to do, Dr. Ryan as the Director of Public Health in Clear Creek does not have anything to do with the Clear Creek co-response program. That is completely separate. He doesn't have any decision-making power. His budget doesn't increase if they get an award. He does directly oversee Mountain Youth Network youth prevention. So how it's written right now, Dr. Ryan has a conflict of interest for both groups. But we would like to tease that out where he does not have a conflict of interest for CHAT, the co-responder program. Likewise, Dr. Story, as the Director of Public Health in Jefferson County, is regulated by the Board of Health. Jefferson County Sheriff doesn't have anything to do with her. So they would not have a conflict of interest with each other's awards. I'm going to pause and see if there's questions.
Chelsea, I think that's good. I know in our meetings, we always have to disclose a conflict of interest, but it's anything on the agenda. It doesn't carry over from year to year to year, something that we've been involved in. My only question is, what if they submitted like a letter of support or that level? Should they say they have a conflict because they obviously were supporting it?
We've teased out the need for letters of acknowledgement and letters of support. So in the next round of funding, we have a letter of intent. And that's just like name, organization, dollar, 500-word abstract of your project. Everybody will look at those and they will say, yes, no, I have a conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest, and describe that. I will go over each of those with legal to determine who really has a conflict of interest based on however we draft our conflict of interest statement. In this case, and then letters of support can only be used for collaboration. So like Gilpin County Sheriff collaborates with Jefferson Center for Mental Health to do the co-responder program. That would be a letter of support. we're not we've opted at this juncture not to use other letters of support in the RFA. We can change that. In this instance, Dan Ayton, who is the law enforcement representative, would not have a conflict of interest on Dr. Story's harm reduction public health award.
Yeah, and that's all within the context of GROC. So if, let's say that outside of GROC, maybe Mountain Youth Network is applying for some other grant or an award or something, and then someone on this committee says, oh, they're the cat's meow, and gives them that. So that wouldn't interfere. That would just be us supporting, any of us supporting what GROC is funding, like
So
just for the community.
They would have to write the LOS from them personally, not from their position as a GROC voting member. The full council has delegation. They have to essentially approve a letter of support coming from GROC.
Yeah, so then it's really a non-issue if
Right.
we're all allowed to support who we want, how we want in our official capacity or in our job. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for looking into this. I sent an email asking for a clarification after I just heard in the last meeting, oh, everyone in Clear Creek County has a conflict of interest in these things. And I kind of made the point. I'm like, well, Dr. Ryan doesn't have anything to do with CCHAT. And I think this is the right way to help keep smart people at the table to help evaluate proposals. And it's a closer match to what conflict of interest law really is about, which is about, is there a chance I could personally financially benefit? There is no chance that Dr. Ryan can personally financially benefit from money going to an organization that does not report to him, whether it's inside of Clear Creek County's umbrella or not. So that's the example I'm using now, but I think this applies in a lot of other contexts. And I think this is just a helpful clarification for the functionality of the GROC.
So if this group approves, I guess this wouldn't be a formal vote yet, but if this group approves, I will work with Carrie on what the new proposed language would be for this format. Is that good? Is that good? That I should direct energy there, not a formal vote.
Anybody opposed?
All right, so hopefully I have new language for you guys at the next meeting. So I was hoping JCPH was supposed to be here, so I'm going to do my best to fill in. We have the Jefferson County Public Health milestone discussion rescheduled for June 22nd. This is a conditional award for $1.5 million. Phase 1 was a pre-needs assessment. The council did approve releasing $347,380.26 while the needs assessment was being done in Gilpin and Clear Creek counties related to harm reduction and that expired at the end of May. The needs assessment is done. We have had, in efforts aligned with community-based programming, we've had 2 meetings with all of the county public health directors, including Dr. Ryan from Clear Creek and Elisa Witt from Gilpin, to talk about what phase 2 would look like, if there's a revised scope of work, a revised budget, what those look like. So today really just highlights those working group conversations to make a recommendation for full council on the award milestone. At the June 22nd full council meeting, there will be a needs assessment presentation. It will not be from the external vendor because their contract ended May 31st. And so, like I said, this conversation was supposed to happen in May. We moved it to June. So that will be done by JCPH. And then JCPH will give a presentation on the revised scope of work. I'm asking people not to pay too close attention to the budget at this juncture. I did ask the State Assistance Committee to weigh in on the budget because Amber and I do have concerns about subplantation. This is our first time funding a public health department, not with a seed grant. So just kind of checking with the review committee on Amber and I's steps to review the budget, ensuring that it's not subplantation. If we think it might be, how are we justifying that? And then we will work with JCPH on the budget concerns, on the necessary documentation that would have to be provided for each line item. And then at the July 8 executive committee meeting, we will bring that final budget back for approval. If you have questions about the budget, please ask them now. I just don't want to get caught up on them because, like I said, I sent the budget to the state review committee. In your meeting materials packet, there is a historical context document, and I took so much time to be as thorough as possible, reviewing meeting recordings, meeting transcripts, minutes, hard documents from the initial application to the needs assessment to the translation documents to do this crosswalk for people. So it does provide a background, a summary of the original council discussions, what the decisions were, what the concerns were. Revise and resubmit section, the final funding discussion, the needs assessment and translational documents. I try to use this like ranking of low, moderate, high, and high to create a current issue inventory analysis. So regional legitimacy and county engagement, that's partially addressed. I think there is a good plan moving forward to make this fully addressed. Whether the proposal represents a true regional expansion, still not fully addressed. I think we would have to take like additional steps if we decided which counties wanted to participate in this to address that. Duplication of existing services, partially addressed. I think this will become fully addressed once Jeffco Public Health is on the ground in all of the counties. Mobile outreach feasibility, this really just comes down to need and actual use. Again, that would be addressed once they're on the ground. Needs assessment as a validation mechanism. There is several concerns around this, that they do describe need, but they don't ever quantify need. This is really, I don't know if this could be addressed without community input when they're on the ground and looking at engagement, but that is still a concern. Budget proportionality, I've already expressed this is a concern. I have shared my steps to make it not a concern by sending it to the state. Subplantation and sustainment concerns. Again, we are in the process of addressing this and we'll have a better idea end of June, beginning of July. Sustainability after GROC funding. This is, I don't know if this could ever fully be addressed with today's funding landscape and budget cuts, but there is a commitment expressed by Jeffco Public Health to not just rapidly pull out of the communities for which they end up engaging with, that they would want to do a phase out or sustain funding and committed to using their dollars for that. Drug checking value, highly addressed. We love it. Physical hub and lease concern. I'm in the process of addressing this. I will have more information after the state meeting is on June 16th. So I will have more information. Metrics, deliverables, and accountability. Again, we have Omni to look at this once the plan is in place and the activities are in place, and Omni is excellent at shaping these. I'm not concerned about this being partially addressed. Key contextual takeaways, kind of like what the next steps are. Elisa Witt, the Director of Public Health from Gilpin County, does recommend moving forward with a collaboration. Dr. Tim Ryan, the Public Health Director from Clear Creek County, abstains from recommendations and leaves that to the Executive Committee and full council. And I will stop talking, open the floor for discussion.
Chelsea,
Yes.
thanks for all of that. I haven't read through all that, but I appreciate you skipping through. So your question was if we had any budget questions. So if Gilpin is leaning towards participating and maybe it sounds like Clear Creek is not, will there be a budget adjustment because the scope of service will be less than the original application?
I would think, I did preemptively ask Michael Miller to provide 2 budgets, one that covered all 3 counties and one that just included Jefferson County. The difference between the budgets is not what I expected. And so I do have concerns about that, about scope and budget and supplementation. So that was why I sent the award to the state, and then we'll have another meeting with Michael Miller on how they're getting the budget that they're getting and trying to understand the budget to scope ratio. Yes, we would ask for a budget that just included Jefferson County and Gilpin County, what that would look like. And again, trying to make sure that the scope and the budget are aligned with each other. I will not have that immediate answer probably until the July 8th executive committee meeting.
Supplantation is kind of a term of art when a funding loss is not your decision, correct? Like I understand like we had an application to fund a position that the organization itself had decided to stop funding. I think with Jefferson County Public Health, we're in a different situation, right? Where external funding was made unavailable. And I think that that's a meaningful distinction, especially to the extent that there's a policy decision here and not a legal decision to be made. Obviously, the law is the law. But I hope when we're talking to the state, we're being very clear. I don't think what we're saying is that we suspect JCPH of intentionally reducing funding for this program line so that we can fund it instead through GROC. Because that's not what I read in their application.
Yeah, there's a lot of timeliness to this because SAMHSA just released a Dear Colleagues memo that they will no longer fund harm reduction work. And so
Yes.
when that memo came out, I asked the state if we pick up this funding, is that supplantation? They have not said yes or no yet. I think it is just extremely contextual. They are very hesitant to say this example in every situation is considered supplantation. It's
Correct.
very gray. It's very colorful.
And so I know, I mean, like from a layperson's perspective, this policy is intended to prevent an organization from saying, I don't need to fund this out of my general fund. GROC can help. That's not what I see happening here at a high level. And I want to be very clear about that. And if we need to have conversation about all of the nuance about legal risk, the appropriate setting for that is executive session.
I might recommend that after the state meeting. My goal right now is because I had a previous meeting with the state and they asked what my goal for the administrative meeting was. And I said, it's more of a preemptive check that, hey, we didn't have clear policies before this award. A lot of things have happened with federal funding since this was initially awarded. Here's our plan for this specific award. That way, I don't want to set a precedent yet. And then here are the steps that we've taken for future funding awards so that we don't find ourselves in this place again. That way, the state is essentially on notice and they won't come after us for remedial action.
Thank
that
you.
is my goal, is really just to put
Yeah.
the state on notice so that we don't get a remedial action next year.
Thank you. That's really helpful to hear. And I know, just some more context here, being on a board of health, public health departments have received fairly steep decreases in state funding as well. And in that timeline, that is what I saw, like what was in the application responding to, not projecting the SAMHSA, we're not helping either, is in addition, not like a sudden explanation for a past, they weren't predicting the future. They were responding to something that's real. So anyway, I'll get off of that. It's just that the present is even worse than that prediction.
And I will definitely bring that up at the state of like, I don't want to set precedent. I'm almost like with the Jeffco sheriffs and the biometrics, we basically received an exception on that award because of the timing of when we awarded it. And then they got congressional funding. It was initially only to start a program, but because of timing, we might want to like fund it for 2 years after their initial funding. We got the okay on that. So it wasn't a blanket, this is okay in every situation. It was a, hey, we're pre-approving this specific situation. So kind of doing that with the Jeffco public health budget.
Thank you. And then the next topic, I see that Dr. Ryan
Hey,
is.
George.
Go ahead.
George, I just want to comment on this topic, if you don't mind. So I know the one that came to us before was a person wanting to fund their job. And I know part of our discussion was that GROC and opioid money is not set up to be backfilling positions that are being cut by any jurisdiction. And so I think we repeatedly say verbally that the opioid funds are not there to fund long-term any program. And I don't know if we really have that in our documents, but given this trend, I think that might be something we would want to discuss further, because no agency currently receiving it, we can't communicate a dependency. The funding's supposed to help create new programs, support existing, but as funding cuts keep coming, I just don't know that we're the source for keeping everyone going. And then especially in public health, their core mission, their core programs are so vast that only a piece of them are opioid related. So it's just a broader caution about our decisions, and maybe getting something written that more clearly clarifies the philosophy and the availability of funding.
So this council has not decided that they don't want to be legacy funders. And I think that is really application dependent. We do have advocates for recovery coming up for renewal, and that is going to be a discussion that we have in July. I don't foresee external funding to advocates for recovery standing on like sustaining Gilpin, Clear Creek, and Jefferson. That is very us specific for their work. So that would be a conversation. If we want to continue funding advocates for recovery, it will most likely be a legacy award. That doesn't mean that we have to fund everybody as a legacy award, but we could have tight restrictions on that. So it's just something to think about. I see Elisa's hand and then Rhiannon's hand.
Thanks, Dr. Chelsea. So is the goal of our discussion today regarding the Jefferson County Public Health harm reduction, are we making any decisions here, or is this a broader discussion about supplantation? Because I have some specific questions, follow-up questions regarding the harm reduction program project, but if this isn't the time, that's fine.
That budget discussion will happen July 8th. I'm more just gathering your specific questions to take to the state administrative committee to review. This is not a specific budget conversation. Today is just a recommendation to the full council of, is this going to be 2 counties, 3 counties, or 1 county?
Oh, well, then that does make a difference. And that's kind of what, if we're, I don't want to derail the supplantation discussion, but I did want to, I had my hand up before all that. So you had wrote in your summary, that I was, that Gilpin County Public Health would be approve collaboration, having the Jefferson County Harm Reduction Points West program coming into Gilpin. But I don't know, like I still have some concern. I did say that in the last meeting, but I still have a lot of questions about that. And I'm wondering, the budget review that the state is doing, will that be through before the next council meeting, before that July 8th meeting that you mentioned?
Yes, so I thought it was going to be on the June 2nd meeting, so I would have more for you here, but it's on the June 16th meeting. So
Okay.
I will have more insight for folks at the June 22nd meeting. And then the plan was to work with Amber, JCPH, and myself, work on a very specific, like, this is the budget that they are proposing, and it would come to the executive committee July 8th for final approval.
Okay. And then the other question I have is about timing, because just looking back at this history, and thank you for writing that up. I know that took a lot of work to get all the notes and everything from all the past meetings, but this was originally approved like a year ago, right? June 23rd, the final funding discussion. So how does that change the timeline of the award for the work that Points West is going to be doing? Like, they already lost a year of their award time?
That could be a discussion at the July 6th meeting if we wanted to extend this award a year, that they had more time to do that. That could happen at that meeting.
Yeah, because their original proposal was for they needed 2 years, and everything is laid out for 2 years worth of work, correct?
Right, and we do that because that is the state calendar for funding. So we did transition to a standard 2-year contract. That would be entirely at the discretion of the council if we wanted to extend it a year. I think that would make sense.
Okay.
I think that is dependent on, is it 1 county of work? Is it 2 counties of work? Is it 3 counties of work? I think we need to figure that out first.
Okay. And then you use the word, that I approved with collaboration, and really, I guess the word is collaboration, but I feel very strongly, and you were in the meeting, I was in the meeting, but just for the executive council, like, I actually really wanted to restrict the area of our county that they work in. And I don't know if that's considered collaboration, but I just from, being in this position for almost 5 years and working with other harm reduction programs and substance use disorder vendors, it really, I actually want to restrict where they're doing this work in our county. And I don't know if that's appropriate or not, honestly. So I don't know, maybe this is too much for today, but.
Elisa, I know you've mentioned that, and I actually have a problem with that. I think the focus would be in the gaming, but if there are people in the larger county not associated with gaming and they could benefit, then they would be locked out. So that would be too bad. But
well, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Hollingsworth, and I didn't mean locked out. Certainly, if there was somebody in the larger community, we wouldn't say, no, we wouldn't give you services. But I'm talking about, my opinion is that theirs is a more urban model, and we're not an urban county, but the area that is more urban and is more conducive to the way that they do their work, as we've talked about, is that casino district. I just want them to be successful, and I want them to rely on the experience that, the Board of Health and myself under the direction of Board of Health, has that knowledge of what works and doesn't work in our community.
And Chelsea, will we be talking about questions like this on July 8th, or do we need to talk about these things prior? Because I think we obviously don't share exactly the same opinion. People that come to the casinos may not be residents of any of our counties. So then if people are somewhere else in our counties, we really want to guarantee they have access. And my other question tags on to Elisa's about the time frame. So if we don't shift them out, so their start date goes 2 years later, then we would have to half their budget, because then we wouldn't be funding that full amount for 1 year versus 2 years. So when are we going to talk about these kind of things, or is this it?
I would probably, I was hoping, like I said, Michael Miller would be here so he could answer some of these questions. Doing my best to fill in. I would reach out to him after this meeting and try to coordinate between now and the 15th, because that's when meeting materials go out of would they need an extension? Do they want an extension? That's not really discussed in the translation documents, taking that into account. And try to have that answer by June 22nd. And then definitely after the state meeting on the 16th, revisiting the budget with the scope of work. What do these options look like? I foresee all those conversations happening at the July 6th executive committee meeting. I do want to point out that this is the flexibility of grant making. I know most of you are familiar with procurement, and this is absolutely not in any way, shape, or form procurement. Grant making has this kind of flexibility of we have these systemic impact changes that we want to make. And so how do we see a group that has a vision, and how do we work with them to make it fit what we're looking for in terms of comfort, dollar amount? It is this gray area that we're sitting in. What I'm really looking for from this group is a recommendation of single county, double county, triple county. If it's double county, what 2 counties? And just encouraging us to do that work, asking these questions of what you want to see and clarified, and trying to align that to a meeting.
Well, I can offer an opinion. I know that Dr. Ryan is abstaining from making a recommendation to this group. Dr. Ryan, I want to invite you to participate in this conversation fully. I'll speak for myself. I think that Clear Creek County needs these services. When I saw that Dr. Ryan was abstaining, I took the time to really read carefully through the assessment. What I saw in the assessment, actually, I think adds to the value proposition of an agency that's not inside Clear Creek County providing these services. I really, really like the idea of basically plainclothes people that appear and are approachable and are not associated with Clear Creek County's government. I think that really goes a long way to reduce any fear, and this doesn't happen in Clear Creek County's government, but any fear that like talking to someone in public health could get, end up being heard by Child Protective Services, obviously, and they are mandatory reporters. But I see a lot of value there. I see the questions I have are around, and I think they can be addressed during the contracting phase, just like we see in the other contracts, like kind of what's the standard of service, what services are being provided, kind of at what frequency. My understanding from this application that I read a year ago is that they essentially want to send people into the community to contact people who use drugs and offer them services. And so how frequently, basically, how much time are those folks going to be in Clear Creek County, so that Omni, as they go through their performance evaluations, can kind of measure that and talk about success. And so I think that's, in my mind, that's the big question, is just like, and that's what I remember hearing Dr. Ryan state, was the big question is around, let's just clarify the service level that's in the application. And then I would really love to see this body recommend I don't want to speak for you, Gilpin, but I think as a 3-county service, this is the right approach. But in the very least, this body recommended 2-county service that includes Jefferson County and Gilpin County.
So I'll just jump into, so I really am deferring to our public health director, Elisa, because Elisa has formulated a coalition of plainclothes people. And Advocates Recovery is trying to make inroads in Gilpin by being in the community and is kind of struggling. And then I think that Elisa knows whether it's value added, whether it's duplicating, whether it's something they've tried recently that kind of fell flat. So the pros and cons. So as opposed to you, Commissioner, I really look to Elisa. If she said, no, this, they just want to come into the county, we're already doing, blah, 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 all that stuff, then I wouldn't be supportive. So I do look to her for her recommendation. So I guess we have different approaches to making the decision.
I do want to be cognizant of time because I do have one more time sensitive agenda item. So I will go ahead and, if there's no more comments, ask for some type of motion on a recommendation, even if it is you don't have one at the time of the meeting, but you'll have one on June 22nd.
Two things just really quickly. One is I think we should recommend also that the contract be extended to actually buy 2 years of this service. Second, I think asking for like a little bit of a context update to the application around like what's the state of funding now, and maybe an invitation to adjust the budget with an emphasis on ensuring that these services can exist over a longer period of time. I think a lot has changed since we saw this initial request. So those are the two things I would add to a recommendation, and I'll just pause briefly if people have a reaction to that. And then would make a motion to recommend, I think, well, actually, let me just circle back. Elisa, are you recommending that services be provided in Gilpin County or not at this point?
I'm recommending that they be provided, but in a very specific manner. And some of the reservations that I have, just to be completely honest, and I wish Michael Miller was on this call, but he has not engaged with me at all. Like, we've never had a conversation one-on-one about this. I had one interview with their consultant that did the executive summary. It was very brief. So I really feel strongly that they don't have enough knowledge of our community to be able to just move forward with a plan that they use in Jefferson County. I think, like I said before, it's a very different landscape and very different needs and very different ways that you would work in our county versus how, they work in an urban environment in Jefferson County. And so again, in the interest of them being successful, because the goal here is to save lives. And the goal here, to me, I do struggle. I understand what you said, Commissioner Hollingsworth, like a lot of the people that are in those casino districts are not Gilpin residents, but they're in our county and they're dying from, drug overdoses. It's getting worse and worse. And that if Points West, Jefferson County Public Health can make some inroads in that area, that is where our other partners are not, they are more serving the residents. They're looking to connect with residents, but there is a gap in service for us that we don't have the capacity for in the thousands and thousands of employees and visitors that are in our casino district. So yes, the long-winded answer is yes, I'm in favor of them working in Gilpin, but in a very directive, very different manner, if they're open to that. And I haven't heard them say that to me or propose that.
They are open to that. That was discussed in the previous conversation. I'm going to go Dr. Ryan, Commissioner Dahlkemper, and then I have to move on, folk, because I do have.
I would just say this. My point of absentia was none of my questions were answered satisfactory, or my concerns, or my inquiries as to what is the plan what is the need, et cetera. The lack of communication is from the very beginning and hasn't changed. And in transparency and clarity, it's sort of after the fact and respond to this and respond to that. That's all in Jefferson County Public Health. It has nothing to do with Dr. Shore. And so I, as Elisa has just stated several times throughout the meetings, more than happy to work with everybody, and everyone's goal is to save lives. That's the whole point of harm reduction. It's why we have a harm reduction program in Clear Creek County, because we firmly believe in that. I'm just not satisfied with the process or lack of communication at all. It doesn't give me much hope for a program running well and relying on Clear Creek County Public Health to do the majority of the work, because things just fall through. That was my point of absentia. I said if the broader group says everyone's in, everyone's in. Right? It's not my decision alone. I put it to the full group.
And I'm glad you said that, Dr. Ryan. I think all of you know, but maybe you don't. So Gilpin used to be under the umbrella of Jefferson County.
Mm-hmm.
There were issues. We broke off, and now we're back to having our own county public health. It's for a myriad of reasons. Many of them were just mentioned.
And I'll just add quickly, I very clearly hear the concerns that are being raised. And I do think that there is also a through line in terms of our desire to save lives. And I think it's really critical that the folks who are doing this work understand those nuances from community to community and how we think through those together. And if you are not getting the answers, or JCPH is not coming to the table in the way that we need JCPH to come to the table, we should talk about that and think that through and look at it. Because one of our foundational values in this work over the last couple of years has been that we value each one of the counties. We're responsive, we're transparent, and we're also considering the unique needs of each community. So I really appreciate the candid and frank conversation, and am absolutely committed to working with you each in any way that I can to help address some of the issues that have been raised today. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
So just to try to help us move on, Chelsea, I see the chat. I don't see anybody speaking against the idea that these services should exist and be funded for GROC in all 3 counties. I'm going to make a motion that we recommend that a contract be explored for all 3 counties. That contract be extended for 2 years of service, of actual service. I didn't hear anybody take any debate on preparing a more modest proposal, so I'm not going to include that in the motion. And that is my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second. With
Thank
the
you.
understanding that we need to have these conversations.
And then we will vote by opposition in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. So our final agenda item that is extremely time sensitive is this renewal application. We have Advocates for Recovery Colorado and Denver Recovery Group only had 1-year contracts that expired this year. So they are going to be our user testing for the renewal. Their application will open tomorrow morning and it will close at 5 p.m. on July 31st. The entire council will be onboarded to score those applications at the July 27th meeting. The full council will do scoring up through August 17th. And then at the August 24th full council meeting, they will have group discussion. I did include the application from ILUNA, and there were just some minor changes that Carrie wanted me to get approved based off of user testing from this group. The legal transparency question, applicant certifies it's disclosed any allegations. I added the yes means a text box will populate for the disclosure statement. No, there's nothing to disclose. If they select yes, the text box will ask them to disclose that legal information in that box right there. None of this section changed. I did clarify, is this a capital project that we might pull out? If it is a capital only project, we might pull it out and invite it into special projects. It might just be judged against other capital only projects instead of being judged against other applicants in the funding area. And then continued relevance to the region, added some bullet points here of what that means. How have they responded to regional needs and prior funding? Any changes in regional context that they're seeing? Why is continued funding warranted? Nothing in target population changed. They each have different start dates, and we are trying to transition all contracts over to the calendar year. So they might have their 1 year contract is actually 15 months or 13 months. Their 2 year contract might be like 28 months instead of 24. So I'm giving each of them a very specific start and end date for that 1 and 2 year term based on their current contract period to transition them to the calendar year. Financial sustainability plan added some bullet points that they should, since it's a renewal application, what does sustainability look like? How much funding have they received to date? Was it intended as a seed grant, or is anticipated legacy funding an expectation from them? How would they continue the project beyond the current request? And again, they should address whether they expect us to be legacy funders or seed grantors. Maybe they don't intend us to be legacy funders. They do have a plan for sustainability. Maybe that doesn't work out, but just to explain that to us. I did get rid of the budget input and I kept the budget template upload. So it's an Excel spreadsheet that you guys have all seen that each line item is connected to Exhibit E. We're just going to keep that for now. I am working with Ayuna on adding some modifications to their build-in budget where we can connect everything to Exhibit E so we could eventually get rid of the Excel, but it just seemed duplicative for this point, so I got rid of that. And then finally, Amber and I did come up with, and mostly Amber came up with this, a discouraged item list. It's not that it's not allowed, it's that these are considered high risk line items of supplantation or duplication. And so if you have one of these line items, we might ask for additional supporting documentation. If you perceive that as an administrative burden, pick different line items. Most of the items come from the Opioid Policy Institute's website. They call it not allowable, but it's more of a discouraged. There's nothing that says it's not allowed. They're just optics. These don't really look good, or again, they're high risk. So external evaluation services, because right now, like for example, we have Omni Institute, they do evaluation services, but Advocates for Recovery, we spent $50,000 on the Butler Institute to do external evaluation services. That's kind of, Amber and I see that as duplicative right now. We do think up to like a half FTE grants manager who supports evaluation services working with Omni, that is very reasonable, but we don't see it requiring more than that. Can they ask for more? Sure. Do they have to do a lot of justification? Absolutely. Radios, hardware for even for co-responder programs, because that is considered standard departmental infrastructure. Obviously, if this is viewed as a seed grant, like for CCHAT and Lakewood PD and Wheat Ridge Police Department, that makes sense. You should explain that in your financial sustainability plan. Uniforms or standard departmental equipment. Executive directors or other senior leadership exceeding 25% effort, general organizational insurance coverage, mileage reimbursement if we also buy the vehicle. That seems duplicative. Rent costs, is that included in your indirect charge? You have to prove that you're not using your indirect overhead line item for rent. That's why you've pulled it out as a separate line item. Capital equipment purchases, clearly demonstrated remediation benefit, agency-wide infrastructure expenses. We do have We do permit a 10% indirect or overhead that is approved by the state. Again, this is not intended to be a black and white list. And it's not that these are not allowed. It's just that these are line items that we see in current grantees that we consider to be high risk and might require additional documentation. Commissioner Marlin?
Yes, I have one little piece of, I love all of this. I have one little piece of feedback on the discouraged budget list. There is some language on the IT section that I think is probably broadly applicable, right? Without substantial project specific justification. I think it's basically ahead of time, people need to know that if they're going to be asking for this stuff, they need substantial project specific justification. So that's my only comment, is that applies to every bullet. Otherwise, I think this is, I couldn't think of anything that's missing or that shouldn't be on this list. I think it's great. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I
I
think
know we're
it's
trying to
really
get out of
great,
here.
Chelsea. I think it's really great. Nothing really caught my eye. The only thing is, let's say that we provide a certain amount of equipment to get their program started, but now the program has grown and maybe they do have like an additional staff person. Could they apply for the outfitting for that new staff person in addition?
Yeah, so again, this is not that it's not allowed. They would just
Right.
have to tell us why. And so if they said this is specifically program expansion, I mean, that would be up to the council, just like every other line item.
Okay, so it would come to the group to
Yeah.
decide on the
It's
funding. Okay.
discouraged. It's not that it's not allowed, it's just discouraged.
Yeah, since we're promoting growth of certain programs, just thought
Yeah.
I'd ask.
And all of the application, I did want to show you what this looked like in a UNA, but we are out of time. Those minor adjustments, those are good. I'm good to release this.
Do you
I
need a
did make
motion?
some, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Dahlkemper. We'll vote by opposition in the chat. All right, final thing is the agenda is pretty much what we did today. I do have about 20 more minutes. We do have a question about the Omni administering their strategic plan survey in 2026 instead of in 2027. That's probably about a 5-minute discussion, but I will add about 15, 20 more minutes to the JCPH conversation based on the conversation that we had today. I can make that work. And then is the agenda good? I will send that out next week. It's basically what you did today.
It looks good. May I ask just some legal advice of Carrie?
Should I pause the recording?
Oh, well, I guess it's a question, but it may have legal implications. I don't know if it will or not, but I'm so sensitive to, whether we can have certain conversations or not. And what is still staying with me are some of the observations that were made a little bit earlier regarding JCPH and the supplementary funding and what that looks like in communities and the lack of conversation among the public health departments in terms of how best to do that work. Carrie, is that something that I can have a quick conversation with Dr. Story about, to simply say this is an issue that came up in our meeting today? Is there some work that can be done on the front end prior to the meeting that's coming up? We can certainly ask those questions at the meeting as well. No question about it. But I'm just wondering what is appropriate, because I was starting to text Dr. Story to say, there are some questions that came up in this meeting. How do we address those issues so that, we're reflective of community needs and talking with our colleagues? And then I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't send that because it may not be appropriate.
A couple of things, and I think those are all great questions, Leslie. I'm happy to have a quick conversation with you offline. And then if it would be helpful, happy to join a conversation between you and JCPH, if that would be helpful. I don't know that there's any prohibition against that. I think that the goal here is you have just disclosed to this body that you'd like to have the conversation with the goal of facilitating a resolution of this outstanding award. I am not seeing an issue, and unless this body has concerns with that conversation occurring offline, I am fine with it.
I don't have any concerns.
In all honesty, we might just be at the point where the three commissioners, me and Carrie, do need to have a legal conversation. That way we can direct everybody more explicitly what the bounds would be. Because I do think there needs to be internal conversations.
I think that's a great idea, Chelsea. I think that's a really great idea.
Okay, I will go ahead and send an email out to the three commissioners and Carrie to get that scheduled. And then, oh yes, thank you so much. Circling back to the Stedman Group Conference, June 17th to 19th, Marie Larson is unable to attend, so we wanted to check with someone in Gilpin first. Elisa, would you like to use her ticket? I do have to submit a name today.
Well, she and I discussed who should go, and I actually have family coming in from out of town those days, and so that Thursday, the 18th, I actually have scheduled as a day off because it's a county holiday the next day. So my long-winded answer is I'd like to be able to, but I can't.
So Chelsea, I'll plan to go. I have something that's I haven't heard for sure if it's happening on the 19th, but I can definitely go all day on Wednesday, Thursday, and part of Friday, if not the whole day. And
I think
I'll
2
probably
days is
start.
enough. They got a packed schedule. I would
The
honestly
schedule's
say,
good though.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say like honestly, even if you can go at least one day, you would definitely get your money's worth because there's so much happening and it's so long. But okay, I will go ahead and submit your name in that ticket change and get you a QR code.
Okay.
And I've kept you 6 minutes over. If there's nothing else, George.
No, that was me waving bye.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea.